Talk about today is sort of some of the. I'm working on a Kickstarter project, a pitch for a game called Lex Laser Saves the Galaxy Again, and it has a couple of unusual game design features to it. In particular, we're calling it a puzzle tactical RPG for busy people. So those are contradictory in a lot of ways, a lot of opinions, but what we're trying to do is explain why that actually does work and why it does make sense. A lot of people like playing tactical games or role-playing games, but one of the problems is that a lot of these games can take a really long time to get into, or a really long time to appreciate. So if you look at the top RPGs out there, or the top tactical games out there, you expect, 20 hours of gameplay is kind of short. And some of the classics out there are up to 100 hours of gameplay. And I personally have a really hard time with that, as I have grown older and my life has grown more complicated. I discovered that I started Planescape Torment 3 times. I played the first half, and then gotten to the point where I had to stop for a while. And after a week, I think, oh, I have an hour. I can hardly figure out what I'm doing in an hour. And then a month passes, and I start to play again, and I realize I have no idea what's going on, and so I'm tempted to start over. So part of what the goal for the game is to sort of unwind that a little bit, to give you some of the sort of continuity and experiences that you can get from a complicated RPG tactical game, but either in smaller pieces, so you can sort of sit down and enjoy it in a smaller time frame, a couple of minutes to an hour, or if you've stopped playing it for a while, sort of help you into getting to play it again. So what we have right now is a prototype. The thing I want to talk about is show the prototype very, very quickly, but I actually want to talk about the games that sort of it's building on. Past that. So, I'll just go ahead and start up here. If we have anybody who wants to volunteer to try it out, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Please, you can mostly want to play with pretty much just the mouse. Mm-hmm. And your basic goal here is that you are an asteroid miner. And your goal is to collect the various rare elements from the asteroid. There are critters in the asteroid called asteroid dwellers who seek out heat anywhere they can find it because they're usually far from the star and want to get energy from somewhere. And the warmest thing around here is an asteroid miner. So you don't need to feel too guilty about shooting them because they're really not very smart. Brains aren't well supported in asteroid fields. Evolutionarily speaking. So, let's go ahead and click on Resume Play there if you like. And this is a demo or a tutorial that's going to give you exactly one weapon. And if you move your cursor onto the main screen, you'll see that that's you up there, and you can see what various things are. You have a simple laser pistol right now, and you can shoot guys, you can shoot crystals, you can shoot asteroid dwellers. It's a turn-based game. That's part of the whole thing. For a busy person, you don't want to play a Twitch game because you might have to put down your computer any moment. And 2, you're going to see very few hit points or anything like that in this game, right? Everything is on screen. And again, this is the intro level prototypey stuff. So we're not going to see all the elements I'm talking about just yet. So you can also walk around. With the number pad. And when you do, everything else will get one turn to walk around as well. So you can hide in a corner, or you can go out to try to take them on. Oh. And now there's one chewing on you there. Oh. So very simple sort of gameplay. If you have left the game and come back to it, you don't have to wonder what these people are doing. It's all on screen for you. And again, this is a very simple intro. You can pick up crystals. They enter your inventory. Well, you can't see the whole inventory because the screen's kind of shrunk right now. You can conceivably select those crystals as items and put them down again if you want to. All right. So you could wander around and collect all the items now. But really, it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
But now we're going to try something a little more complicated. Okay. This was an environment where you have a pistol you can fire anywhere and shoots one thing at a time. But let's look at the next step. This is one where we're going to talk about the mining laser. Mm-hmm. And in this case, your weapon is a little bit different.
Okay.
And I'm not going to tell you anything about your weapon. Let's see if you can figure out what's going on with it. You shot an explosive crystal at that point. And if you can so your goal here just to get all of your enemies to line up for you in a cooperative kind of way. And again, unlike a lot of the RPGs where you're trying to figure out what does that spell do again, we're trying really hard to make sure everything's on screen so that you know exactly what's going to happen before you click your mouse. You don't have to wonder, you don't have to really explore. Right. Now, here's the last of the simple demos. In this case, you now have a shotgun. Very rewarding, viscerally exciting air effect. One of the things that you may want to keep track of is you actually only have 18 shots now.
Oh, okay. Where are the shots going to go?
Upper left there, yeah. So maybe a double-click bug going on in there.
Okay.
Plenty of shots left. You've been pretty conservative with your ammo.
I cannot wait for this to have sound effects.
Yes. Here's a little bit.
Because if this doesn't make like a satisfying shotgun rack noise every time you use it, I will be really disappointed.
Indeed, indeed.
Even better will be the placeholder sound effects where we just record ourselves going pew.
Okay. Alright, so you've gotten all of them, and you did not make the mistake that some people have made, which is shooting the explosive crystals up close with your shotgun. Alright.
I did notice that when you mouse over one of the explosive crystals, it shows you what zone around it would explode.
That is exactly another one of the aspects of the thing I'm trying to talk about. In this case, you're not hitting it, so it's not going to show you. But if you were to wander over there, it's going to give you a warning as to what's going to happen. So, again, we're trying to hold your hand and make sure that while it's okay in some sense to have large level surprises, we don't want to have you clicking the button and then suddenly discovering, and then we don't want to give you things that you're going to forget about, such that if you play again 2 weeks from now, you're going to have to remember them again, and not remembering them is going to hose you. We want to make sure that you have a chance to learn them and get some warning. So this is kind of the final exam. You've got all 3 weapons. None of the 3 by themselves is probably going to do it, but it's hard to say. You may or may not need to use tricks with the crystals. Every time you take a turn, they all come closer. And you can switch between weapons either by clicking on them or using the number keys to the left on the keyboard there between them.
Okay.
That would be an exciting chain reaction were you to do that.
Yeah. Oh, so if you explode one of the exploding crystals, it will explode other exploding crystals. I am using science.
Yes.
To describe those crystals, by the way.
Well, I'm calling them exploding crystals too. So you
I think that's technically engineering.
Yeah.
It's like science, but
Yes, indeed.
Whoa.
Oh dear.
That's the worst that could happen.
For all you FPS bros out there, horde mode.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so
Taking
you want to try again? We can just sort of try that again. Minor side notes. We've got, all of the minor details in this level are procedurally generated, only being the artistic sort of cutouts of the asteroid that you're in. But in the actual game, we're procedurally generating corridors and stuff. But for the demos, I didn't want to randomly throw the players into a situation that might be impossible. This one is possible and occasionally hard.
Okay.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Well, the monster layout is random when you generate. Not random. It's a little bit of sanity checking in there, but they don't start next to you for the most part. So now, for example, if you were to switch to if you get a button in a row, switching to the cutting laser is really kind of handy. But now you're not quite in the line anymore. So the shotgun is the go-to. Oh my gosh, get me out of the situation quick! But even it can't save you all by itself.
I really wish you had like a heat-seeking, like a heat missile or some like a torch you can throw to get them to get closer to those explosives.
Yeah, and some of the we have definitely prototyped out what happens if you have your laser shots heat up rocks, so we go towards that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for this, I want to keep it really simple for the first.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So each attempt is really pretty quick on this an area of this scale. We are not showing off, story and stuff here either, but rather the basic combat, which is the part that needs to be really. The foundation needs to be fun before you go any further.
If you are next to one of the enemies and you move away from them, they follow you obviously. Do they do damage to you on that turn?
No.
No.
But they can attack diagonally, so in this situation, there's only one direction you can go without them getting you.
Mm.
And can they attack just in this direction or also
Yep.
the corner?
They can attack corners and straight.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's obviously in an ideal world we would have a lot more animations explaining these things to you, right? That's part of the learning curve. It should be exactly obvious what happens when you do it, and at this stage of the development we don't have that.
So, finished, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to give that one more go? Do I let someone else give it a try? One more go. Right.
Okay.
You can do it.
A couple of tips might be, don't forget that if you can sometimes wander into an area where you're not surrounded on all sides.
Ah, okay.
Another trick is use those crystals to exactly take advantage of them when they're lined up whenever you can. And you can take a couple hits. And so you're starting to notice a couple of things. That, for example, if you aren't lined up right, the cutting laser has this really nice long area effect. You can get a whole bunch of guys in it, but you have to be standing just right. They have to be in one of the 8 cardinal directions. And so that's sort of the puzzly piece to it.
That's a lot of worms.
Yeah,
There's a lot of worms.
really difficult, yeah.
So apparently the difficulty ramping is too high.
Okay.
From those first 3 to this 4th one. Any other takers?
Hell no. No. I don't have a chance in hell.
And so obviously, again, talking about that target market, if we're talking about busy people or whatever, there's difficulty sliders are one of the things you have to add in. Luckily with this game, actually, it's very easy to change the difficulty. You can change the amount of ammo you have, you can change the number of creatures you have, you can change their AI a little bit to make it very different. But for the most part, once you've got an AI or a system that you like, it's very easy to adjust it from there. Also in the game, we're talking about, you'll start with these various weapons that you've got here. Between missions, you can modify your weapons, change the area effects that you're seeing, and that kind of thing. Sort of give you an ability to customize your character. But we're trying to avoid giving you complicated sets of abilities and talents on your character, right? It's all going to be right there on the screen. And if you end up changing out your weapon for a different weapon, or maybe not a weapon at all, maybe a scanner or something, again, to remind yourself of what you've got, you just need to swoop through those weapons and see what they look like on screen as you move your mouse around. And that's hopefully the extent of the re-education you have to give yourself when you come back to, in the middle of a combat even, you come back to it. You can quickly figure out where you are and what was going on.
I move diagonally.
You can either right-click in a direction, or you can use the number pad to...
I just realized the cutting laser is little lightning bolts when you fire it.
It's going to be a close one.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the cutting laser is actually really, really useful in areas where you've got bottlenecks and you can force them to. This is a pretty wide open area, so it's less of the. It's not as useful as the shotgun here.
That was good.
Very efficient use of ammo there.
What do blue crystals do?
They're valuable. You want to pick those up, but they don't otherwise do much.
If I move, they'll move next to me, so I won't be hit. Okay. Oh, that's not where I wanted you to move.
Now, obviously, one thing you might want to do in a modification, for example, is to give yourself a cutting laser that can go at 16ths instead of 8ths around the circle. Something like that. So, because obviously here you're seeing a lot of that situation. That's a satisfying shot. Nice.
Now I'm playing Stars and Stripes Forever in my head, right? Like he's just going down row after row. Da 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 da.
Oh! Still a noble attempt.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, I wanted to go through that and then talk about the games that sort of came before. So rather than go through more of these, let's take a look. So I sort of started doing this backwards from the way a lot of the things do. We usually go chronologically, sort of from the forward up to the more recent game. But in this case, the more recent game is still very much in prototype stage. That didn't seem quite appropriate. So there's a lot of elements in there that come from a lot of very different games. I'm going to start here with sort of the SSI Gold Box games, and really it's kind of misleading to say that that's where we're starting from, because really what we want to start from would be Dungeons and Dragons, with tactical combat on the battle map and all your guys moving just so, but it's hard to display that. And the Gold Box games really get a lot of the core of what Lex Laser is actually using with their tactical combat. So we don't actually need any sound from the video, I don't think. Let's see if I can actually find the parts of this that I want to show.
So can you make the video full screen when you play?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in these games, this is an old set of games. I don't know if you're familiar with the sort of wizardry first-person walking through a square-based dungeon. So the game had two modes. You'd walk through the square-based dungeon, and you'd encounter various things and various plots. In this particular case, your adventurer is known for being, do-gooders and whatnot, and you find a bunch of ogres, but you're trying to sort of work with them to help you against an even worse bad guy. So this is sort of later in the Gold Box games when they started actually having more interesting plots, a little bit more depth to them. But more importantly, as you're wandering through this little square-based dungeon, when you finally get into an encounter and a combat, you will discover that the battlefield you're on is based on that square-based dungeon. And there's another innovation here that we'll talk about a little bit later, which is, here's an ogre talking about he has a proposition for you. Are you interested? You say, sure. And then the game says, well, I don't have text for that. Look it up in the book. You record it in Journal Entry 24. So this is a kind of fun thing that, back in the day, there were two reasons for this. One reason was copyright protection. So you had to Xerox a manual before you could actually enjoy the story. But the other piece was actually, oddly enough, disk space. I don't know if that was true for this game, but at least in one of the other ones I'm going to talk about, it was disk space was an issue. Now, you wouldn't think text takes up that much space, but these were games shipping on floppies and stuff like that, so every bit was important. So this ogre is telling you about an assassination plot and all this stuff, but essentially what we're going to go forward now is to take a look at the combat. Let's see if I can quickly. When I'm in full screen, I can't look at the previews, so hopefully we won't teleport too far. So you're now wandering through the ogre camp, and you can see how graphically beautiful it is. And we finally run into some ogre guards. And again, because this is not yet the fight, because we're cleverly avoiding fights. All right, let's cleverly avoiding fights. And in fact, I have just teleported past a fight. Let's see if I can get back to it. I'm going to go out of full screen so I can actually find the part I'm looking for, and then come back. All right, where are my previews?
Yeah, I don't know what the previews are.
Oh, all right. Well, let's use the other trick. Oh, there was another. So actually was a thing that went on there that went on by too quick to happen. But basically, he found some treasure, and then he said, "Oh, well, my characters have a lot of loot now. I better make sure no one's encumbered." So he looked through all the characters, to make sure that none of them are carrying too much loot. This is another old RPG staple that Lex Laser wants to do away with, because who has time for that? Especially if it's been 2 weeks, you're not going to figure anything out. So this is a fine example of things that games have done in the past that a thing I don't want. But now we're going to get to. Okay, here we go. So this is another square-based combat system. And what's going on here is you've got your party of 6 adventurers. Each of your guys are small, they take up 1 square. And all the ogres are gigantic, big, giant guys, and they each take up 2 squares. And so you end up running around and you're fighting them. And then using various magical effects on them. One of the things that goes on here is that, especially as it flies by, it's hard to tell. If your party of adventurers does something that decides, I'm going to cast a big spell, it's going to cause a big explosion, the game doesn't tell you where the explosion is going to hit. Right? It's like you have to remember that if you're going to launch a fireball, it's going to go 3 squares in all directions from your cursor. And if you don't remember that and you get it wrong, you hit yourself. And this was really cool at the time. Everyone's like, wow, that's great. You have to actually be careful and know your D&D rules and all this good stuff, which I at the time thought was the awesomest thing ever. But then I would play these games by sitting down on Friday night and stopping on Sunday night, right? That's just a different experience from what most people can really do. Anyway, so this isn't just the SSI stuff, though. This is the same way that you would play Dungeons & Dragons. And when I first started running Dungeons & Dragons as a game master, it was very much a tactical combat experience, right? It's, let's go in, we kill the monsters, we take the treasures, and here's a challenge for the players. They have to do it as efficiently as possible and all this stuff, and as little help as possible. If they wanted to drop a bomb on themselves, you let them. Let the chips fall where they may. Sometimes it's important to hit yourself with your bomb to get what you need, but, generally speaking, it's an accident when it happens, not intentional. So, again, this game also has the notion that you've got 6 characters to control. Each character has very different abilities. Those abilities change very much over the course of the game. All of those things are complications that are awesome for someone who can sit down and play the game and really concentrate on it and immerse themselves in it. But if you are going to take a break, you forget which character does what. You forget, oh, does my wizard have 3rd level spells now? Oh, only 2nd level spells? Oh, I guess I can't solve that problem. Okay, so let's see. Do we have a clock in here I can look at? Awesome, thank you. All right, so a lot of these combats are very, very similar, but you see here all these these are magical effects hitting the ogres. Those ogres are all affected by a taunt effect. They want to kill one of those characters, but you can't tell which one it is unless you happen to remember having cast it yourself. And then here's another effect on the board, and it's a stinking cloud, and what does that mean? Well, again, if you haven't read the rules recently, you don't know what it means. So I'm going to stop harping on that and go to the next example. But this was sort of the mainstay of tactical combat. This is how it began, and for me it was a really huge influence because it was pulled straight from Dungeons & Dragons. Let's see. What do we have next? So I'm going to move on to Gauntlet, which is a simpler version of tactical combat, but has turned it into real time. And most people play Gauntlet, especially the way this person plays Gauntlet, which is to say, you're playing it on, these days at least, you're playing it on an emulator, or you're playing it in an arcade and you have way too much money, and you just feed in all the quarters, and you just decide, you know what, I'm going to kill the ghost by running into them. So in Gauntlet, if you do that, you take a lot of damage, and you need to put in more quarters to keep playing the game. hey, they're being tactical here. They're actually going to take out a monster generator. And now they're not going to be. And so, so if you were in the arcade, when this was in the arcade, you will recognize this as a good way to waste your lunch money. And she's not even bothering to pick up food, because why would you? But so anyway, this is on a small level. There are interesting tactical situations that are coming in here and developing in here. But if depending how you play it, you can ignore them, or you can sort of dodge them. So there are different levels of sort of cautious play in Gauntlet. This is the extreme. This is a character. This is someone who has decided that they want to, on one quarter, get 1,000,000 points. So you'll see a very huge difference in the way the two players play. You also see a difference in the skill level of the Twitch skill level, but so this character is going to slowly take out the monster generators, make sure they never ever get hurt. They know where the monster generators are. They've played this level over and over again and have memorized a lot of it. So one of the things that I like about Gauntlet is that you can do some clever things to sort of manage your enemies, cause them to go where you want them to go, line them up so that your arrows can only come at you one at a time, use the bottlenecks to really sort of manage the situation. One of the things that is not as good is the part where if you haven't memorized a lot of the levels, it's kind of hard to sort of react to them. So ideally you'd want to be able to sort of look around and see what you're expecting. Let's see if we can get some good examples here. So here's a great example where he doesn't need to get those ghosts. In the end, he's going to actually ignore them. But he's just getting some points here because, look, they can't come at me, so I can just take a whole bunch of ghosts out and not worry about it. This is kind of a bit of grinding because the goal here is high score. Let's go ahead and speed this up. I love this YouTube speed up feature, by the way. I can watch lectures at double speed. That's really good stuff. And it makes Gauntlet look much more exciting.
Do you learn twice as much?
What's that?
Do you learn twice as much?
No. No. Actually, you probably learn about the same amount or a little bit less. But it feels more efficient. So once again, right, you could open that door and just charge in, but this person had decided that no, let's lure them out. And let's get a little bit farther along. We have slightly different enemies. Maybe that was too far along. So you use the treasure chest as ways to bottleneck your foes in. I think somewhere around here, finally, the elf actually gets hit by one of these guys for the first time, and I'm in awe of this player's abilities. So, again, you're being a little bit cautious here. But basically, this is not to say that caution is the fun part, but rather that the part where you're trying to convince your enemies to go where you want them to go, move them into patterns where you can hurt them, is a sort of is a central fun thing. Plus, there's a sense of progression in Gauntlet that isn't in some of the even earlier games that you'll see here, where you feel like you're getting lower into the dungeon and accomplishing things. Here's a neat bit where Gauntlet has these diagonal tunnels where you start to see some of where the laser cutter thing comes in. If you line yourself up on these diagonals, you can start taking out monster generators when they can't possibly hurt you. All right. So Gauntlet was actually a pretty big influence for everybody who wanted to play D&D on a computer, because it was one of the first times we started seeing it really real-time and tactical at the same time. But then here's the other extreme. NetHack. Who would like to play NetHack? So, NetHack is text-based. Let's do it. All right. And we're going to have it pick everything for you. So NetHack is adding a little bit. He didn't read the story, by the way. There was a story.
Story Shmori.
It tells you some things. One of the things it told you is you're looking for the Amulet of Yendor. Every character has a different reason for looking for the Amulet of Yendor, but you're all looking for it because it's the thing you're looking for. So NetHack is turn-based, very tactical. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You only have one character. That's much simpler, right? Unfortunately, this is the command list. And that is page 1 of the command list. Okay. And when you hit the spacebar, you'll get more. That's page 2 of the command list.
No, nice.
You can kick things, you can pick things up, you can eat things, you can fire a weapon if you've got a ranged weapon.
Eat like a flash.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I
weird?
can engrave things.
Yep. That's page 3. You can quaff things like potions. You probably want to quaff potions as opposed to you can. By the way, you can tell it to quaff things that aren't potions. It will tell you that you're silly. There's more.
Oh, the meta key. Nice.
Yeah. So there's not enough modifiers in NetHack. Every key has a meaning. You need to modify every key. Capital C and lowercase c do different things. So shift is modifier key.
Good luck.
You are the @ sign. So I'm still calling this NetHack. This is really talking about roguelikes in general, but NetHack is sort of the one that I cut my teeth on, which was perhaps the wrong one for me to cut my teeth on. So you have hit the question mark or something like that. So it's asking if you want to try to identify things by moving your cursor around. It's so complicated that it needed a tooltip system in a text-based game, so they made this hacky way of doing it. Right.
Okay.
So
Done.
you are the @ sign.
Done? What?
You're done doing the help thing. So you want to use the number pad, was probably the best way for you to actually control your character.
Okay, this is a cursor, and I moved it to an unknown object.
Right. For instructions, type a question mark. So there's an instruction bit to tell you how to highlight things to tell you what things are.
Press space! Okay, not enter. That was what I was doing wrong. I'll use M to select one, so space. Yeah.
So NetHack is kind of, in many ways, the most extreme example of rogue being hard. Right? We see here Owen has so far failed to do anything, which is kind of lucky, because most times when you sit down to play NetHack or Rogue and you start hitting some keys and you start doing some things and you're not sure what you just did.
I'm just gonna fight this D. I've given up on trying to work out what it is.
Alright, that D is
F.
probably a jackal. And
But is it capital F or lowercase f to fight?
You can just bump into it, actually. You can
Oh,
just
nice.
bump into it, it'll do right there.
You,
And the reason the jackal is a D is because D is for dog, and it's a lowercase d so it's because it's a small dog. Although capital D's might be dragons, so you gotta be careful. The other fascinating thing that NetHack has got, so you don't even know what class you are, I bet you've got equipment. If you hit the I key, you can figure out what you've got. You've got a mace and spell books and stuff, so if you want to learn your spells, you have to read your spell books. Etc., etc. Everything here actually has a use. Spells will probably tell monsters where you are, but they'll probably do something else too if you figure out what that's for. It's really, really cool for getting tactical depth, for getting sort of story-like behaviors out of near-random dungeon designs. But really the problem with NetHack, and most of the rogues, is that if you don't remember all of your resources, you're in trouble. So you get into a fight and you suddenly discover that, oh no, I'm in trouble, I'm losing the fight. So then you look in your backpack to say, is there something in here that will save me? And there might be a wand that'll zap things. There might be a potion that will heal you. There might be a way for you to teleport out of the trouble. But you have to look at your inventory. You have to remember all of your resources and use them correctly to really have a shot.
Oh, of course. Comma is pickup. That makes sense.
You can also turn on automatic pickup, but of course if you do that, then you need to turn it off before you run through places with lots of heavy stuff you don't want, like boulders.
Specify unknown object, yes. Move to...
And then space.
Space. Done.
Because there was nothing there. So, don't you know that number sign means corridor?
Oh, of course. That
Right.
makes sense.
Yes, of course you don't know that. Also, there's a D following you around. That's your dog. It's a pet. It will help you out.
Displace.
But it's a friendly dog.
It's a friendly dog. Yeah, but it's a D because it's a dog.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And that greater than symbol is stares down.
An F.
An F could be a number of things you might want to identify, or you can just run into it and see what happens when you attack it.
I've failed to identify something every time I've tried to do it.
Maybe the spacebar doesn't do what we think it does.
Yes, no, and quit? What is... Like... Maybe I want a Q? I don't know. What? I don't know, man.
If you attack it, it'll tell you what it was.
Pretty good. Move the code. Instructions type. Okay. Press... Oh! Press a period or a comma. Okay. That makes sense. It's a fungus.
It's a fungus or a mold.
Okay.
And if you played NetHack a lot, you
Oh,
might actually know something about the
Yeah,
color of the F might
I was
tell you.
expecting that I could pick that up, but in fact,
Oh, no, it turns out that was a
you
creature.
Kill a fungus. Okay, no worries.
If you've played NetHack enough, you'll start to learn a lot of little tricks. Like the color of that F probably meant something about which kind it was. And some of them, you hit them, they'll probably explode. Some of them will counterattack, some of them won't.
Rufus just ate a goblin's corpse.
Oh
That's
yeah,
pretty
very
gross.
important because you need to eat stuff in the dungeon or you starve to death. And you need to eat it quickly before it spoils.
What's your hunger level?
It's not listed, so you're normal.
I already ate my clove of garlic because I was like, ah, this looks
You can
delicious.
eat that, exactly. So all
I think
these
every
features are
one
really
would be-
pretty cool in a lot of ways. Like this game has incredible depth to it. In fact, much more so than really anything you're going to find on the market. For a lot of reasons, not the least of which being no one actually wants this level of depth, which isn't quite true. But it's for the most part, most players don't want this level of depth. The learning curve is incredibly steep. There's a whole lot to learn, and there's a whole lot to forget. If you are sort of playing these games honestly, you take notes. You have to learn what you're doing. It takes a lot of effort to get to the point where you might have a chance of getting to the end of the game, let alone actually winning it. But what usually will happen is this is one of the games that kind of started up the whole concept of the walkthrough, right? You look and all the lore is out there. The source code's available. A lot of people read through the source code to figure out how they can win this game.
I
But
just drank all the water out of a fountain. It was great. Oh,
anyway, the things that we're taking from this are, again, we want to have situations that are a little more interesting than pure combat. We haven't yet got those into the game. But what you need to do is every time you're adding a new feature, you want to make sure you don't add them all at once. You want to make sure the player is only seeing a couple things at once, because what we're trying to do is make it possible for the player to jump back in again, which means that you have to have tooltips for everything and very few mechanics at any given time, except possibly sort of in the final, challenges of the game.
I don't even. Am I pushing a boulder? Is that
That
what's
is
happening?
probably an orc.
Pushing them up.
No,
it's
it's
an
a boulder.
iron ball or boulder.
Yeah, it's a boulder. Okay, so yes, you can push boulders around. That's cool.
Oh no, another jackal probably. Oh.
Get that mouse out of your way. That'll make things easier.
Delicious.
Guess you need
Buff.
to cook it first.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So it's not enough, by the way, that you have creatures in here that you can eat. Some of them are safe to eat. Some of them are not safe to eat. If you eat your own species, the gods get mad at you. For the most part, if your dog eats something, it's probably okay to eat. But if your dog can eat things of your species, then that's okay. So anyway, the gods have strong opinions about what happens, and they start smiting if you do the wrong thing.
Oh man, I could have put down
That's
my
why we'll talk
goblin
into a really
statue.
weird direction about pets for a minute there.
Yep,
Anything your dog will eat is safe for you to eat.
except things like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've got very simple procedural generation of their levels here, where you've got big square rooms joined by corridors. Later on, they get a little more exciting when they have big caverns and whatnot. But those are
Oh
hard
man,
because you can't
tons of
bottleneck.
rats.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that NetHack sort of starts doing pretty nicely is the notion that you've got a whole lot of a bunch of little critters, or occasionally have one really big critter. But this is coming down. They use a lot of hit points for mechanics. This creature's got is really really hard to kill because you have to hit it a whole bunch of times. Kinds of mechanics. Again, that's something that we're trying to avoid because we don't want you to have to remember: is this a hard creature or an easy creature? That kind of thing. For the most part, it should be pretty obvious when you look. And when you're satiated, it's hard to keep eating. You can carry it for later.
I'm just gonna eat everything that I kill. There's not one to...
Like, you're already carrying so much that you're having trouble getting into places. Right?
I think you probably pick up the gold automatically. You can, in fact, configure your character to pick up certain things automatically and not others. A shiny ring. Do you dare wear it?
Of course.
Now, how do you wear it?
It's Shift W. You don't have anything else to wear.
I believe it's P for put on.
Oh. Nope, nope.
No?
Maybe it's Shift P.
There we go,
Yeah.
capital P.
N.
So earlier when
Which finger, right or left? Right. Okay, now I'm wearing it.
Now this actually informed a whole lot of modern RPGs, right? Now you have usually the character picture, right? And you drag stuff onto your character. And so questions like, which hand do you put the ring on? Well, the one I dragged it on, of course. And in fact, they're even better than that. You just drag it something onto your character, and it puts it in the right spot. It doesn't ask you, do you want to wear the ring on your nose? Like, it doesn't ask you that, which is good, because it shouldn't. Earlier I was playing, and the character I happened to started me with was wearing a robe, or a cloak, I think it was. And I found some chainmail, and I thought, awesome, I'll put on the chainmail. So I thought, well, that's capital W, right? So I did that, and that didn't work. I couldn't wear anything. And after a while, I figured out that in order to wear chainmail, you have to first take off your cloak, because obviously you can't put your chainmail on over your cloak. That's ridiculous. So I had to take off the cloak, put on the chainmail, and then I could put on the cloak again. Because, you know, it's important that your text-based game be as realistic as possible. And there are secret doors. You could, maybe searching there might help you find the passage, but...
Search? How do you search?
I think it may just be S.
Who knows? Next level!
Next level, where are the stairs?
Is it?
I think it's greater than.
Greater than...
Is it? I know that... Whoa. Hey, I found my dog again.
Used to be shift or control that would go down the corridor until it was done. And that's kind of interesting too, because the game starts to realize that it makes itself boring, right? With all the large dungeon areas, they had keyboard shortcuts for run down this corridor to get to the end, because we know you don't want to hit the right button over and over again to get to the end of the corridor.
Oh, G and the direction.
Go direction probably. Yep. All right.
Nope. Nope. Hey!
Yay!
Drink that fountain. I feel smart!
Apparently you found the fountain of Jinn.
So all those messages actually have a secret meaning. You feel smart. Probably means your intelligence went up. Some of them, it says, where's Maud? And you're like, what does that mean? What it means is you have forgotten the maps. And so each of these... So basically, you find an item and it isn't labeled. You don't know what it does. This is true for scrolls or potions or whatever. And so you drink the first potion, and then from then on, you know that red potions have a particular meaning.
I'm level 2.
Level 2.
Yay!
Ah.
Another boulder.
Another boulder.
Try to move the boulder, but in vain.
Oh, but you can walk around it. That's good.
That's probably a lizard. Lizards are colons. It's a mystery as to why.
I like the fact that you can kind of sidle around.
Either diagonal moves to get around the boulders.
Yeah.
And you probably pinned something between those two boulders. Like there might be a creature in there. Well, usually it would tell you things like you hear movement in the darkness or something like that. A lichen corpse.
Tastes terrible, apparently. Nope.
I don't care if it tastes terrible.
Are you playing NetHack or Skyrim?
Oh, God.
I found this weird plant. Let me eat it.
Nom nom nom.
That's true. Skyrim used the eat plants to identify them trick, didn't it? So a bag. You probably want to open that bag to look inside it, because that wouldn't occur to you otherwise, would it?
True. Oh,
I have
gosh.
to ask if anybody here
not
ever played
options.
Muds,
Yeah, a little bit.
which NetHack has a lot of similarities with, right? Like they're kind of based in the same framework, although, well, I guess there were some Muds that worked on this, but mostly they were entirely text-based. No
They're more
ASCII
Zork
or-
/ Colossal Cave style.
Yeah.
I also
So-
had a lot of functions like that,
Yes.
and quite the same sense of humor.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Very much so. Because they're making fun of themselves throughout, actually.
Sometimes, yeah.
I can open a door.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I open a bag?
You could try it. I suspect that you need to use a
Maybe
bag,
I have to... Oh, use a bag.
I think.
Look. Far look.
Far look, yes.
Untrap.
Untrap.
That's useful. And then one trap.
Wait, turn undead.
Yeah,
You turn
handy.
undead,
Oh, you
towards the
become undead.
Yeah, so that's a term of art from D&D, right? To turn the undead is a D&D term for cause them make them run away from you because you're holy.
Ah.
And it turns out that very few characters in NetHack can do that.
But just in case you have a character.
Just in case you have a character that can, you've got the keyboard shortcut for it. Exactly. Did you manage to figure out how to use the bag?
I'm gonna try and drop the bag and then open it. See no door there. See if I search the bag.
But look.
Look at them.
You'll need to be standing over it at very least. Here there be dragons, I bet.
Possibly deacons.
Here there be deacons. That's probably what they're trying to tell us.
K. Oh gosh, is this?
Yeah, HJKL is movement.
It's really like a mud.
It's a lot like yes. I've got the bag. Now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out eventually, right? Yeah. But then a week later you'll have forgotten.
You're right.
How frustrating.
I used to play one where it would every time you stepped over it, it would ask if you wanted to open it. And so if I was carrying a bag, if I wanted to open it, I just had to drop it, step off, step back on it again.
Yeah.
So it said, "Do you want to open the bag?" And I'd say, "Yes, please." And then you go through the basically conversation menu where it says, "Do you want to put stuff into the bag, or take stuff out of the bag?" It's exactly exactly. All right,
I think we're done.
I think we should move along. So it's a complicated game with a strong learning curve. It's got some really cool stuff to it. I'm going to move on. So this is a slight detour into Robotron land, which is here because Robotron used to terrify me when I was young. I'm going to go ahead and skip into the action here. Can even listen, maybe. So you are the guy in white, and you're shooting bad guys, and you're saving the last human family by picking them up and getting points for them. The thing this is actually a descendant of the game I'm going to show you in a second, but it's sort of the neat thing that's going on here is that we're going back and forth between real-time and turn-based games a lot, because there actually is a lot of people want to make, hey, let's make Gauntlet real-time D&D, wouldn't that be awesome? And then someone else here is saying, hey, let's make this real-time you're being hunted by robots game, because the turn-based hunted by robots game was so excellent. The neat thing about Robotron is the way it's actually played. You've got one joystick to move your character, and a second joystick to fire in any of the 8 directions. So you've got 2 joysticks to control the game, and this was where that control mechanism started. And it's really hard to wrap your brain around when you're just starting it out. And now this guy is doing clever stuff where he's leaving one enemy alive so that he can collect all of the last human family and get lots of points for them. And pretty soon we're going to see another wave where he starts completely surrounded by a lot of guys. And that's a lot of the feel. Here we go. So he's so good at it, unfortunately, that it's hard to really grasp the terror you get when you're actually playing this game, where you realize you're completely surrounded, but you only fire one direction at a time. We're not going to go much farther than that on this one. But here's the turn-based version, and this has been rebranded as Daleks, which is probably a questionable trademark choice. However, this game was basically originally called Robots, made for Unix way back when, Unix not being the operating system. And you're going to recognize a lot of the sort of stuff I talked about earlier from the Lex Lasers, that you can move in any of the 8 directions, and the robots are going to move towards you 1 square every time you do. And your goal is to get them to bump into each other, because when you do that, they smash into each other and turn into a rubble. So your goal is to cleverly walk around, and when you finally get stuck, you can teleport. Now, teleporting, you could end up somewhere very unsafe, so you want to avoid teleporting. You can also use a bomb, which destroys everything near you. But this is extremely basic gameplay, and yet, as you play it, you start to recognize a lot of interesting situations that come out of it. So I can get rid of those guys back in the far left by causing them to run into the rubble. Now these 2 guys I can't get rid of because they're just spaced out wrong, so I'm going to teleport again. You've got a certain number of what they call safe teleports, where you're guaranteed not to appear next to an enemy. But this is a very, very basic puzzle gameplay. Again, you're just trying to get things to go in places that are helpful. And now I can, for example, I can't actually walk here. No matter where I step, someone's going to be able to get to me. I can use a bomb, and then maybe last another turn, but now I'm again in trouble. Teleport, and then try to convince them to bump into each other. And then when you've got one, your only hope is to sort of teleport around the map until you can finally get rid of them. Would anyone like to try this game? It's actually a really good little puzzle game.
I used to play this when I was a little kid, but I was never good at it. Okay, let's try it.
And
Up on
now
left right.
hopefully left you on level 4 or whatever. But
Is this up down left right? And then the hot's teleport.
you can go up, down, left, right, and diagonally. T teleports you, and you've got a certain number of safe teleports. Right now you've got 1 safe teleport, and right now you've got 2 bombs.
How do I bomb B?
B will bomb.
The B and T? Okay. All right.
Yeah. And again, fully turn-based. You got all the time in the world to think about it. And this is, in a lot of ways, the core of the gameplay in the newer game.
And bomb is that gray area around me?
Yep.
Okay, so this is not a safe place, right?
No.
You also wait too, so you can let them walk one step toward you.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And in fact, they give you more points. There's also a wait until someone gets right next to you. And any Daleks that get destroyed during that time are worth more points if you care about points. You can pick up extra teleports. That's
Oh, so if you set up the board in such a way that you're going to kill a lot of the robots.
Yeah, then you can just sort of say, go. And that's probably was originally just a mechanic for speeding up the game.
Oh.
But later became sort of a reward for you've done the analysis, you've figured out the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your cookie for that.
So I hit a W and it just ended.
Yeah, W is wait, and what happened was they never got next to you. They
Yeah.
ran into rubble. So
Okay.
it would be nice if they showed you.
yeah. Well, yeah, it was clear that was going to be the thing that happened.
Yeah. One of the neat things about this game is that very much unlike NetHack or any of the other rogues, your current game state, everything you need to know is on screen. It's very immediate. There's no mysteries here if you just take a little bit of time to glance on the screen and see where you are.
That was not useful. Ah, get away from me.
Can you get rid of him?
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay. And health.
Hearts are extra lives. They're really nice to have. And they've added gewgaws and stuff. The original game didn't have all those. This extreme set of features.
I seem to remember when I played on my Mac Plus back in the day, there was no such thing as a safe teleport. Like,
You didn't want to teleport. No, you did not. Yeah, it's actually possible to play this game a long time.
Yeah.
With all the safe teleports and heals, and they have Superman costumes and stuff like that you can pick up too.
Wait, you mean you can fly?
No, but it means that you're immune to a hit once. It's very similar to an extra life, actually. I haven't figured out much of the difference. Yeah. Now, after you play this game for a short while, you get to the point where you realize that you only really you've got very few options.
Oh, no.
One, you can't make a mistake. If you ever miscalculate. But two, there's often the right move to make. And then you get to the point where there's robots next to you and you choose, am I going to bomb them or am I going to teleport away? I wanted to make a game where you, instead of having just this couple, you've got a lot of options. You're trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. Alright. Now moving on to a little bit more like story-like things. One of my favorite games ever is Star Control 2, and it doesn't actually. The gameplay of Star Control 2 doesn't have much to do with the Lex Laser gameplay, but the story is has some neat elements to it. Most of the story in Star Control 2 depends on which, and you're flying around in space, you're gathering minerals, you're exploring, you're talking to aliens, you're trying to figure stuff out. This is the galactic map, and as you explore space, you discover that there are certain things in space. So, for example, you see that circle there that says Spathi in it. That is the area of the galaxy that the Spathi race sort of controls. And similarly, in the bottom left, you see the area space that the Ilrath guys control. And as you play the game, those circles change. They primarily change when you discover new facts about the galaxy. You'll discover that, oh, there's a new alien race I didn't know anything about, and now I know where they live. But actually, depending on what you do, you can cause those circles to move or grow or shrink. So if you really inconvenience one of the alien races in the galaxy, they could get wiped out. And when they do, on this map, they'll shrink down to nothing, and you'll kind of feel guilty about it. Or you won't, depending on exactly what you thought of them. But the neat thing that they do in this game is they just have these... It's really hard to describe. Let's see if I can get a good conversation here.
You can bump the resolution.
The quality.
Definition. Yeah. Oh no, that's good.
That's good. Okay, maybe it's just the source material is not so.
Yeah.
Let's see if the style of this. Why can I not get the sound going again?
Crank the bar up instead.
Oh.
Yeah, the soundtrack of this game.
The soundtrack is excellent. Unfortunately, this version has voiceovers, which I don't like as much. So you're flying on your ship. You've encountered some guys.
Converse.
Well, talk to them.
Surprise and terror! I am greeted by the smooth and hostile face of our old enemy, the Hootsman. No, the huge cat? No, I remember. The All aspects of your last statement defy the course of nature, and I know it. First, peace, as you call it, is an illusion. If you have peace, you simply haven't yet seen the thing that's trying to kill you. Second, peaceful missions through the cosmos rarely require weapons large enough to punch holes through a small moon. In case you have not forgotten, we are bonded to the Earthbound as slaves. The punishment for the plan you propose can be described as death. We can best be described as meta-mollusks, possessing the best qualities of both the clam and the gravatt, which is not native to your world. We are intelligent and clever, though you would never call us cunning. Each day when we awaken, we call forth the traditional Spathi prayer. Oh God, please don't let me die today! Tomorrow would be so much better! I want to live forever, with no pain whatsoever, owning vast personal property, plus the company of nubiles. If this is in your power to give, I beg of you to do so.
This guy.
This is a sad tale, so do not even try to contain your tears. After the Orphan demolished the Ilrath, they turned the force of their armada against us Spathi. The term rapidly subjugated would best describe what happened next. When the Orphan arrived at Spathiwa, there was a great ceremony. Part of that ceremony involved blasting portions of our planet's surface into radioactive dust, and this part we did not enjoy. But the worst was yet to come. Our leaders were called into the command chamber of Urquan Lord One's dreadnought, where they were read a long and complicated document explaining the choices given new slaves. When our leaders heard the term forever encased and impenetrable shield, they grew overexcited, I'm afraid, and made a fatal error. The decision was to be transmitted to the Orphan by one of two rods, one colored black, the other white. Our leader handed the white rod to one of the Orphan's servants, signifying fellow slavery. But the servant somehow exchanged rods and handed the Orphan Lord a black rod, indicating our desire to become fighting slaves. By the time we learned of the switch, it was too late. The Orphan would not permit a change in status. Following that most tragic day, we were forced to assume the role of an Earthborn-starred fund. We tried to avoid combat, but the Earthborn gave us 3 warnings, each more strident than the last. When we learned that there would be no 4th warning, simply annihilation, we attended to our new role with improved vigor. Oh, and perhaps you have already guessed, the Earthborn's servant who made the switch was an Umga. Sure, consider it done. Allies to the bitter end. But can we keep this as a secret between the 2 of us? It's really rather embarrassing.
So that's sort of, to me, the central brilliance of this game, and it's something that I would love to take and use, but unfortunately it's very difficult to do. They've done it so well. But they've done each of their alien races, or you can call them factions in some other game, but all the races have a very distinct sort of personality like that one. And they simplify a whole bunch of things by saying, yes, all Spathi have this same outlook. They're all cowards. They're all going to do what you want them to do if you threaten them the right way. And so that sort of helps the player sort of figure out, oh, I know how to interact with these people that I've never met before because I've got a little bit of background on what they're like. And also they've embedded little clues in there. And if at the end you notice that he's making a big deal about how they selected to be slaves, put under an impenetrable shield because they'd be safe forever, and that'd be wonderful. But then somebody betrayed them, and the people that betrayed them were called the Umga. Well, it turns out that the Umga are another race in the same game, when the Umga are tricksters that like playing jokes that often involve people getting hurt. So the Umga it makes perfect sense, sort of it all fits together. And in fact, one of the neat conversations you can have in the game is when you finally, you can convince the Umga to use their influence over another race to convince them to go to war, and that's when you see, civilizations falling and rising and falling based on your actions, but in particular based on what you've convinced other people to do. So they've got some really neat bits in there. Now, part of the reason I bring this up is because if I'm talking about a game where your primary interaction is tactical combat, you're running around doing little things on sort of a sort of simplified rogue level, it's kind of difficult to sort of sneak in to some extent, world-shattering, changing plots. But Star Control 2 does a really good job with that. Your only interactions, your only gameplay interactions, are these occasional conversations, which are very, very simple conversation trees. But also, who you're fighting and how well you do in those fights. And so, by basically taking your plot and dissecting it into very clever branch points. Right now, this is an important moment in the story. Just a minor decision on the part of the player can actually have vast consequences, and so that's one of the things that we're trying to pursue there. And sort of another fine example of that. So what I'm looking at here. So FTL doesn't have long consequences, but it's kind of hard to see. Let's see if we can get better quality here.
Yes. Don't give me head.
May have to start it over again.
Nope. Looks like it jumped right more or less where you were. Yeah.
So, the game FTL has a couple of things that are very similar to the Lex Laser game. Obviously, science fiction, exploring space, that kind of thing, all very similar. But FTL is a series basically of spaceship battles, but in between the spaceship battles, you have a very sort of a tiny little bit of plot before you begin each area. And sort of you can choose from a couple short little options, and then you're thrust either into a battle or you're allowed to sort of go on your merry way. In Lex Laser, what we're doing, instead of having a conversation and then a battle, what we want to do is you have your scenario where you're wandering around. Either maybe you're mining crystals, maybe you're trying to defeat an invading force, maybe you're trying to rescue people from a burning building. Could be a number of different things with the same sort of basic roguelike mechanic, but what you choose to do in that situation will act as sort of a conversation branch. So, for example, if you're your scenario is you're going into a burning building and there's people that need rescuing, or maybe there's loot that needs rescuing, and you don't have time to do both. And what you choose to do is not really part of a conversation dialogue tree, right? It's more, what actions are you taking in the heat of the gameplay? But rather than saying, you don't have a gigantic map like you would have in a big RPG where, where remember exactly where all the chests are and exactly who you've looted, exactly what you've said to everybody. All we need to know is, in this scenario, what was the outcome? Did you come out of that scenario with people rescued, or did you come out of that scenario with lots of money, or did you come out of that scenario, I don't know, badly burned? These are sort of the three outcomes that you can have, and based on that, we can use that to sort of control a branching story. And the way we make that work is we split the story up into what we call episodes, and so it's sort of when you're done with an episode, we want to be able to put a lid on it and sort of forget the details. That helps the player, so that the player doesn't have to remember exactly what has happened. The player can remember a short summary of what happened. But I want to get back a little bit to some of the FTL also uses some interesting sort of, they call it roguelike, but it's more just sort of square-based real-time stuff. In some cases, in the heat of battle, for example, you can pursue and just try to destroy a ship, or you can let them surrender, that kind of thing. And that's the kind of thing I want to do through gameplay rather than through conversation trees. But these little vignettes that FTL throws at you are kind of like the idea of what I want to do in a Lex Laser episode. The main difference is sort of their scale. A Lex Laser episode is a slightly larger thing with more moment-to-moment choices. And most of your choices in FTL are your big choices are either combat details or plot details, and they don't smoosh them together very well. Let me see if I can talk a little bit about what's going on here. So, in an FTL combat, your main attacks are sort of based on your weapons. You've got your missiles and your lasers, and this is a readout of the enemy ship. It's always a one-on-one fight. You're trying to damage various parts of their ship. Each room on the ship has a different function. If you damage their shields, they lose their shields. If you damage their engines, they can't maneuver, that kind of thing. The same thing's happening on your ship. So, again, the main attacks thing is your weapons are going to be attacking and doing damage, and they're doing the same to you. But when things go horribly awry is when you start having to actually talk about the small scale. So in their case, the enemy has teleported a robot onto the ship, and we're trying to fight it off here. And once you fight it off, then you're going to try to send your people who are injured back to medbay so they can get healed. And maybe you'll send some people off into this room here. There's a hole. Oxygen is leaking out. You want to head into there so you can fix the hole in your ship. In fact, this guy may even be talking about it, but I'm not sure in the language here, so I'll leave it. And as you're fixing stuff in a vacuum, you start dying because vacuums aren't fun. And now we get the chance where you can either let the ship surrender or not, and they choose to let the ship surrender, but the robot's still here, so we have to take it out. Yeah. They send them back to medbay to heal up, and these guys are fighting the robot. They're probably going to win. And now, so this is the thing in FTL. What they've also decided is that after you've won the combat, there is no time pressure, right? You can just take your time now and fix your ship, which I think is a good choice. It makes a lot of sense given the fiction they're talking about. That interstellar travel takes a long time. So if you take 5 minutes to fix your ship after you're done, whatever. But so I'm in two minds on this whole part. So these guys are all in here trying to fix the whole hull breach, and of course while they're doing it, they're taking damage from not having oxygen. But why isn't this automatic? And I think part of that is actually sort of a tutorial idea. Sometimes you have to do this during combat time when people are attacking you, and what they're doing is they're sort of helping out the player by forcing them to manually do it every time, so that when it happens during an actual combat tense situation, you're more prepared for it. The third or fourth or fifth time you're playing through an FTL mission or FTL game, you wonder why it's not automatic. But I think it makes sense for the teaching part. I've not done a good job describing sort of how FTL does its sort of, as you enter each star system, you have one encounter, and that encounter is sort of where the story elements come into it. It's pretty soon he'll have the ship fixed up. In fact, I can't speed this one up. Okay. sometimes you can. There we go. So now you might choose to explore. Again, nice little interstellar space map. And most of your decisions are things like, here's a ship, do you want to fight it or not? And generally, once you're well equipped with your ship, you'll say, yes, I want to fight the ship to get loot from it. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop there, I think. So, anyone have questions about any of these games or any of the background here, or anything I can?
I have a question about Lex Laser.
Yes, please.
Is that okay?
That's great.
So I'm thinking of Gessler's book Casual Revolution, right? And some of the stuff that he lays out as being important for. Okay, I'm calling Lex Laser a casual game, if only because it seems like a lot of its design choices seem oriented towards that audience, right?
I think it's fair to call it a casual game.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's a loaded word, so I try not to use it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's not casual, like, act casual, whatever. Yeah, there's good reasons not to use casual game, yet a lot of the things he cites about casual games, interruptibility, right? The ability to stop playing it at any time and pick it back up at any time. One of the important qualities he uses is juiciness. A really great word, but it has a
word.
Yeah, it really just rolls off the it's juicy. So what are your juiciness plans for Lex Laser, if any?
So let me clarify the term. Juiciness to me usually means gameplay with the things I feel like I've done that are cool.
Yeah, he talks about it in terms of he separates it out from positive feedback and that the game regularly tells you when you've done something good, but juiciness is kind of like, not only does like Bejeweled tell you when you've matched 3, but little colored bombs goes off and you hear a yay in the background, right? And I was playing New Super Mario Brothers on the Wii U last night, right? That's a hard console name to say, but
yes.
Wii U. And that's not necessarily a casual game either. But one thing I noticed, yeah, it actually can be quite.
Some casual games are.
It can be quite ass whooping when it gets up to the harder stuff. But whenever I do something cool, the game cheers. And I realized I want every game to do that now. But I like, you know, when you find all 3 of the floating hidden coins, you know, you hear right in people cheering and clapping, and I'm like, holy shit! Why doesn't like Call of Duty do that? That would be amazing. But I mean, that's kind of a juiciness thing, right? Like, it's not just feedback, but it's buoyant feedback.
So like a pat on the back, almost.
Well, it's more like. It's the difference between "good job, son" and "yeah, goal." You know, like yeah.
Sure. So there's there's 2 pieces to that. One is the ability to do something worth cheering about. Right. And that is mostly in the game. It's we actually had a couple short moments of it when we were playing through the prototype there, where it's like, oh wow, look at all they're lined up perfectly for this shot. You know, you've got 10 of them in a row. Good planning. It feels visually cool to be efficient about what you're doing there. That's sort of when you get the shapes matching up just perfectly. In terms of how you sort of give that feedback, it wouldn't make sense to have people cheering you, but in the game actually you're controlling the combat implant, which is why it's turn-based. You're a computer, things go so fast that you can think and you've got all the time able to think. But then you take over Lex Laser's body and say, okay, now you move your gun this way and you fire. That's the fiction. But this means that you actually have 2 characters involved at all times. You've got the player and you've got Lex Laser. Lex Laser can be totally psyched when you do something like that. You have just lined everything up and just solved the problem with one beautiful shot. And then Lex Laser can say, oh my gosh, that was amazing, to give you that kind of feedback. This sort of goes along with the whole part where Lex Laser is not always psyched to be fighting. And you're like, we're going to save the orphans now. And Lex Laser says, but the loot's over there. You know, you might have arguments as to what the right thing to do is. Yeah. But that's where it comes from. Is the pat on the back from the main character.
Because I was thinking of because it seems like one of the important puzzly setups is that you want to set off these chain reactions of exploding crystals and all that other good stuff. And in my head, I was imagining them going off in consecutive, like, match 3 games do this all the time, right? Where you get your first match 3, and then there's a brief pause while everyone cheers,
Yes.
and then the next one happens, and then the next one happens, and then the next one happens. And I was kind of envisioning, actually, even more so now that you've mentioned the fiction, right? That Lex is like, okay, right, and then you kind of see the slow-mo.
Yep. Yep. And
That would be cool.
And in fact, something that's definitely missing from the prototypes is that kind of visceral. Like, we aren't even at this point having the bad guys slide towards you. Like, I take a move and they're done, right? What you really want to have is them, you know, they come closer to you. You want to sort of feel like they're coming at you, and you're exactly right. Like, this is the exact kind of place where this is unclear, right? We can think about it for a little bit and figure out, oh, I hit the first crystal, it explodes, the other 2 explode, that makes some sense. But viscerally speaking, really what you want to have is when I do it, there's a nice animation to explain everything.
Yeah.
So the preview is not
How
enough.
dare your prototype not have everything that will be in the finished
Yeah,
game?
you know.
What kind of penny ante operation is this?
Well, one thing I got from reading some of the lore for the game that I can easily imagine like happening in it is like you're fighting between the heartbeats of Lex Laser, so it's just that thump,
You could, yeah.
and so like the things are getting closer and closer. Having Lex Laser just be freaking out, like, what is going on here? I'm gonna die. Get me out of this thing, and the player's just like bam, 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 bam.
Well, that and I was thinking of I was playing Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon this week, and when you kill someone, like, and granted, this is because if you haven't heard of it, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is very much a parody of old 80s action movies, right? When you kill someone with a shotgun, Michael Biehn, who's the voice of the character, you know, the camera tilts down and you hear him go, I guess he called shotgun, right? Like, I don't know if that's maybe a little too, right? I know, you guys, I know, I'm right there with you. But, like, because multiple weapons is a thing in here, I can imagine, you know, Lex Laser maybe making, you know, slightly less I have no regard for human life-y sort of quotes, but...
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, especially when you look at the fiction there, you've got the main character who's running around, who's known throughout the galaxy as being this awesome warrior, and who's really incompetent at that particular thing. But, you know, wanders into a place and there's a fight breaks out, and Lex Laser just has to relax and let the combat implant win the battle for him or her. It's a very strong disconnect between, you know, I'm not responsible for what's going on. You know, so there's definitely strong opportunity for that.
Also, I'm glad that you're offering both flavors of Lex Laser. I noticed that in the Kickstarter too. So.
Yeah, I've been discovering it to be extremely hard to write text without ever saying Lex Laser is female or male. It's difficult. This particular image is actually based on one of the male concept art pieces, but that shouldn't be taken as any indication. And as you know, it does seem a little bit less important perhaps when Lex Laser when you're playing the combat implant and Lex Laser is not in some sense your character, but I still think it's important the player be able to put whatever spin on it they want.
I know, it totally is. I was really happy that you guys made that decision.
But at the same time, you want to have this character to be able to have opinions and family and background and things like that are harder to do when you give the player full role-playing control. I mean, some games have a lot of tricks you can do to get away with it. When you're running Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, Baldur's Gate does this thing where, yes, you are the chosen person and everyone's trying to kill you and you don't know why and blah blah blah. But it's kind of it doesn't have the same background to it. Like you've got one person in your life who's important and they die in the first scene, right? It's a little bit nicer if Lex Laser can have some opinions about what's going on in the galaxy, but still not do the thing but still obey the player.
I've also been playing Entry in Odyssey 4, which I picked up last week, and going back to it's interesting that you were saying that because I was thinking when I play wizardry alikes, and Entry in Odyssey is a wizard. It's shiny, but it's a wizardry game. Mm-hmm. I have to name my party members after people I know so that I give a damn what happens to them.
Sure.
Like if they're just like fighter number 4, I'm like, oh, he was mauled by a bear.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Oh, that fight was so
I don't
level,
really
what a
care.
shame.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when I name them after people I know, I develop some attachment to those characters, and I also like a sick joy out of it, right? Like ever since I started working here, I've named the Goofy character class after Abe. Who's hopefully watching. Like when I played Dragon Quest IX, he was the cleric who then became a dancer, who then became a superstar, right? So he healed by singing inspirational songs. And I think Abe would be fine with that. But I
hope so.
But I think that's kind of the same principle, right? Like I remember the old SSI Gold Box games, and you named those characters, and sometimes you chose a little bit what they look like. And obviously you chose their combat statistics, but man, personalities, they don't have one.
Yep.
They are there to run your maze.
Yep. Well,
They don't even need personalities at that point.
There's a trick that I've really wanted to have an opportunity to try, but haven't yet, and Lex Blizzard wouldn't give it to me. But you make your party of 4 or 6 adventurers or whatever, but then behind the scenes the game assigns each character a background, right? And so your party walks into the bar and they pick out a random one of your characters that you thought you made, and they're like, you owe me money, and they really do owe the money. Like to maybe you can choose which archetype your characters get, but give them a background. The player may not have a choice.
Atrian Odyssey does that with dungeon things. Okay, so for the benefit of the internet, I named my party after people who helped me with the quilt bag jam. So my offensive spellcaster is Christine Love. Sorry, Christine. But there's a quest early on to look through pools of water for a ring, which is called My Precious, by the way.
Of course.
And at one of the pools of water, Christine just fell in. Like, it didn't ask me if anyone was searching the water in particular.
But Christine was the one.
But Christine was the one who was like, oh, look, right? Like, she was the person who went face first in the water. So it was a very similar decision, right?
Sure.
They were just like, oh, she was attacked by bees. Sorry. Poor Christine.
Was there any continuity there? Like, or was it just rolling dice? Do you think?
I'm pretty sure they just picked a random person, or because there's 6 formation slots, they probably just picked whoever's in this formation slot at any given time.
Sure. It's actually pretty common that they'll have the person in front be the party leader, and therefore that person does all the stuff. The good stuff and the bad stuff.
Yeah, and there are times when there really were bees. Like it was, they show that, oh, there's the smell of honey in a hive. Do you want to get some out of the hive? And you're like, sure. Then they have you pick a party member, right? And there's 2 options. You can get the honey and everyone has some and it's refreshing and they heal a little bit. Or that person pisses off bees and they take damage.
Right.
Right? So that's kind of like on a different, you chose that one. But.
Yeah, that's actually a lot of what a lot of the FTL vignettes are like that. It's like, here's a small question of what do you want to do, and based on what you do, we'll roll the dice. It'll be good or it'll be bad.
It was Rick. Rick's the one who's always checking. Well, because he's the highest HP character in the party. So I was like, who am I going to send into danger? Nah, Rick will go.
It's important to have hit points if you're the one who's the player who's going to send into danger.
Although I'm starting to wonder if you're just trying to kill me off.
They were just bees, man. Get over it.
He reloads from save when you die.
Okay.
Oh, he doesn't. Sorry.
No, we're up to Rick number 6 now. It's actually kind of weird.
We're done.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you for listening.
Remember, go to Kickstarter.
That's right.
Support Lex Laser.
Lex Laser Saves the Galaxy again. You can't miss it.
He needs your help.
Yeah, whoops.